The HOA thought they caught a trespasser.
You can't be here.
They
This
called
is
the
private
cops
property.
on a black man who was
Actually,
camping
ma'am,
peacefully by
according
a
to
lake.
this deed, I
But here's
own
what
this
they
land.
didn't know. The man owned the entire ranch, including the very land under their feet. And by the time the truth came out, it wasn't him in trouble, it was them. This is the story of David, the rancher the HOA underestimated, and how their arrogance cost them everything. David Brown wasn't just a landowner. He was a steward of his family's legacy. For generations, the Brown family had held 500 acres of ranch land, including rolling hills, forests, and a large lake fed by natural springs. To David, the lake was more than just water. It was where his father taught him to fish. It was where his grandfather told stories under the stars. And now, it was where David went to find peace. But to the HOA of Lakeside Meadows, the fancy suburban development built right up against his property, David wasn't a neighbor, he was an inconvenience, and they wanted him gone. At first, the HOA tried to ignore him, but soon residents began complaining. They saw David sitting by the lake in the evenings, camping with a fire, sometimes bringing friends to fish. Karen Whitfield, the HOA president, decided this wasn't appropriate. She claimed the lake was part of their community's shared space, but it wasn't. The lake, the land, and the surrounding woods all belonged to David. He had the deeds, the surveys, the taxes to prove it. Still, the HOA sent him warning letters. No unauthorized camping. No fires allowed. Residents only. David chuckled at the absurdity. Residents? I own this whole lake, he muttered. He tore up the letters and kept on living free. Karen wasn't done. One Saturday night, David set up his tent by the water, lit a small fire, and cooked a meal. The crickets chirped, the stars shone, and all was peaceful. Until headlights appeared. Karen marched down with 2 board members, flashlights in hand. "Sir, you're trespassing. This is HOA property," she barked. David looked up calmly. "Ma'am, you're standing on my land," she laughed. "Nice. Try. Pack up your things and leave before we call security." David simply leaned back. "Do what you gotta do." An hour later, red and blue lights flashed across the lake. 2 police cruisers pulled up. Karen stood proudly, arms crossed. "Officers, arrest this man. He's trespassing and refuses to leave." The officers approached David. "Sir, we need to see some ID." David calmly handed over his license. And then the property deed he carried in his bag, sealed in plastic. The officers scanned the papers. Their expressions changed instantly. "Ma'am," one officer said slowly, turning to Karen, "this deed shows Mr. Brown owns this entire property, including the lake." Karen blinked. "That's impossible." But the officer was firm. "No, what's impossible is you accusing her man of trespassing on his own land." Karen stammered. But our residents use this lake. It's part of our community." David stood, his voice calm but strong. "No. For years I let people use this land out of kindness. I never fenced it off. I never stopped anyone from walking their dogs or fishing here. But kindness isn't the same as surrender. You all assumed it was yours. It never was." The officers nodded. "Ma'am, technically you and your residents have been trespassing all along." Karen's face went pale. Neighbors who had gathered began murmuring, realizing their HOA had built walking trails and docks, all on land that wasn't theirs. David could have ended it there, but the HOA didn't apologize. Instead, they doubled down, filing a claim to annex the lake into their development. That was their final mistake. In court, David's lawyers presented decades of deeds, maps, tax receipts, and witness testimony. The judge's ruling was crystal clear. The HOA had no claim. In fact, they owed David damages for years of unauthorized use of his land. The walking trails, trespass, the docks, illegal construction, the fees they charged homeowners for lake maintenance, fraud. The judgment forced the HOA to pay David millions in restitution. Karen, humiliated, was removed as president. Homeowners demanded answers. And the HOA, once arrogant and untouchable, was left bankrupt. David didn't gloat. He didn't rub it in. He simply put up new signs around his land. Private property. Access by permission only. He still let respectful neighbors fish, walk, and enjoy the lake, but on his terms. And Karen, she moved out quietly, her reputation ruined. The same neighbors who once saw David as a trespasser now waved at him with respect. Because in the end, the HOA thought they were protecting their community. But all along, they were trespassing on. Pause, music softens. So let me ask you, if people used your land without permission, would you let it slide, or would you set the record straight like David did? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe truth always wins, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories where justice always finds its way.